watching Max like chase him down. I was like, oh my, like I was like yelling at the TV. We had a Pagani Huayra in our office.
As you do.
Yeah,
normal.
Yeah, that was that was surreal, man.
All right, everyone. It's been, you know what? I think with these podcasts, it's very much quality over quantity. I haven't done one of these for a little while. It's been a few weeks, but today, oh my word, what a guest! What a guest! I never even fathomed that I'd be able to. But when I saw he followed me on Twitter, I was like, boom, straight in the DMs. I'm gonna do my best to see if I can get a man who is the face of. You know, there's a few faces, but he's the face, as far as I'm concerned, of the Donut Media YouTube channel, almost at 4 million subscribers now. Big time, and very much flying the flag for Formula One on the West Coast, as far as I'm concerned, and very much in Donut, because he loves a bit of F1. And we're going to dive into that a lot more today. So welcome to the Cool Down Podcast, Nolan Sykes. Thank you very much, buddy, for coming. How the devil are you?
Thanks for having me, man. I'm stoked.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, you know, I'll just get right into it. I followed you because I found you because you made a response video to our did Volkswagen kill Formula One video.
Yes, I did.
And I was like, oh no, because I've made some Formula One content in the past, and I'll admit now, after a couple tries, I'll be the first to admit that I don't know as much as I thought I did about the sport. So I mean, your video was really great, and you thankfully you didn't like just go in super hardcore. You addressed everything in a very reasoned fashion. It's like, all right, this guy's cool. He taught me. And I will say it did humble me a little bit, which is good. Because I was like, okay, you know what? There's other people out there making, like, they know more about the sport than I do.
Yeah.
It really did cause me to, like, kind of step back and be like, because, like, the way we make videos is, like, it's on a very, like, it's a weekly cadence. It's, like, we're always, like, working on scripts. So, you know, maybe, like, a script like that should have had a little bit more consideration, I guess, you know, instead of just like going full force with it. Although I think it's still a pretty good video, but it's a little. How do I say it?
It baited a lot of people. Let's just say. I mean, so we were going to obviously address this at some point, but I've got this in my 15% dislike, which is pretty big. I know that, and obviously I looked through a lot of your like stuff, just generally speaking, and generally that's a pretty high dislike. But to me, actually, the things you covered in the video, I thought were pretty much spot on. Really, it's just the title, the way that was titled. That is what got people wound up. But actually, in terms of the content, I fundamentally agreed with pretty much everything that you said. So actually, Nolan, give yourself a bit of credit, mate. It was good. It was just that, you know, that clickbait, ultimately, you got to play the YouTube game, ain't you? And you did very well because, you know, all engagement is good engagement, right?
Yeah, that's true. Like, dislikes are counted the same as likes. But that's, I mean, I don't really focus too granularly on that. But, like, that's kind of the problem with YouTube is that, like, I mean, doing titles like that and like clickbait, as you said, like that term's almost lost its meaning almost, because like clickbait, when I think of it, is like, okay, like it's this outrageous thumbnail and title, and then it's never like addressed in the video, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't want, like I've been watching YouTube for like since I was a kid. And How old are you?
I'm 27.
Okay, so we're the same age. So like,
I was gonna say, I thought we were the same age, but I thought it was a bit, you know, I'm not gonna like straighten. Nolan, how old are you?
Like that's like we grew up like in the same way. Like I don't like doing those kinds of thumbnails and titles, but like that's, I mean, you know, that's how you get people in the door. And as long as you like justify it, I think, like, and deliver.
I think even just the difference between, like, you know, because the title, if I remember correctly, was VW just killed Formula One, full stop. It was the full stop for me.
That's right.
I love
Okay.
the full.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
again,
you know
like
what?
if you put a question mark, then people are, but you know, but that's the thing. It's like you said, you did back it up, and in terms of the actual points made, I thought you guys were pretty much spot on.
And I think that's a valid critique. The full stop was too far. I think I'll say, yeah, I agree.
You know what?
I agree with that.
I don't know about you, but like when I'm messaging, generally I speak in like proper English grammar and like I'll full stop at the end of my sentences. And some of my mates, they feel like whenever I'm like, I'll just do a normal response like, hello, full stop, and they'll think like I'm really cutting deep because I've put an emoji at the end.
Yeah,
but I don't know, maybe it's the same thing.
That is a strange, like, the way we talk through text now is it. You know, like, talking with, like, I don't know, your girlfriend or whatever like that. You gotta, like, sometimes you gotta add the emojis and all that to make it seem like you're not being overly serious, even though it's a pretty inconsequential text message or whatever. But anyway, that's off the beaten path there. That's the point. Yeah.
So obviously, you say you've been watching YouTube since like you were young. Like outside of kind of Formula One and kind of growing up with YouTube, have you always? Are there certain channels you've always followed? Where's that kind of manifested itself?
I think it was like when did it start becoming popular? Like 15 years ago now, which is crazy to say.
Yeah, that first ever video, wasn't it like some kid in a zoo? And that was like 15 years ago, yeah.
But I remember watching channels. Did you ever see like Ask a Ninja? Do you remember that at all? Yeah. So that was like the first channel that I was like really into. I thought it was so funny. Going back, it's like, wow, this is some primitive YouTube stuff. I remember being into that channel. We didn't really have high-speed internet at my house for a long time. Yeah. So I kind of got into YouTube around when I was like in high school, like 5 years later after that. So the big channels at that time were like Smosh and I'm not really even sure. I just watched a lot of like game trailers and stuff like that. That's what I was mostly into, and music videos too. That's what I used it for mostly.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's fair. I can't be asked to pay for Spotify. I just, I'd rather just watch through the ads. Now that I'm a creator, I respect the ads a bit more.
Oh yeah, I've turned off my ad blocker now for like YouTube because it's just like, you know what, gotta support the channels out there.
so you're kind of like your obvious passion for gasoline for cars. Where do you think that kind of stems from? Because again, I've always kind of asked this question to people, and sometimes, like for me, it was more from gaming than anything else actually, because my family were never really into cars. But where do you think that kind of started for you?
I think gaming definitely played a huge part. Like, I say like too much. Like growing up, I say it all the time. Don't worry. With I had the PlayStation 2, so Gran Turismo played a huge role. But like games like Midnight Club 3 is probably my favorite PS2 game. What else? Oh, Need for Speed, of course. Yeah, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2 is like my favorite game. And then Burnout 2 and 3 were like
Nolan.
So amazing.
You're just ticking every single box for me, man. It's weird. We grew up on like opposite sides of the planet, we're the same age, and we've had all these same experiences with gaming, like bringing. Because so, are your family into cars? Is there?
That's like the other side of it. Is that like my dad he's a huge gearhead. He has too many project cars in his shop, which kind of causes some problems sometimes. But like growing up, like he had a subscription to like all the muscle car magazines like Hot Rod and Street Rodder and Carcraft and stuff like that. So I would like flip through those. Mostly, I wish if I could go back and change one thing is like I wish I actually read all the technical articles as opposed to just looking at like all the cool cars and like the. That's basically it. I really shot myself in the foot there. I'd probably have a bit better grasp on things if I had actually paid attention and read the words. But in regard like Road and Track and Motor Trend though, I think I would read through like the car reviews themselves. I found that a little bit more interesting, just like the driving experience that these journalists would talk about rather than like the mechanical side of it. But now it's kind of flipped. Now I'm like, I'm really wishing I had that technical knowledge on like how to diagnose engine issues on like really old engines because I bought a couple I think like 2 months ago, I bought a 1952 Chrysler Imperial sedan, which it doesn't run at the moment, but it has the firepower Hemi, which is the first Hemi engine that Chrysler produced. So I'm a big Chrysler and Dodge guy, so that was like a big find for me. Anyway, I'm wishing I had that innate knowledge on how to do that or how to work on it. I'm chipping away at it.
Given your kind of position where you are now and the people that you work with, I guess this is as good a place as any, right, to build those skills?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I was at James Pumphrey's house, my boss and fellow host at the channel, and he has a Toyota AE86. He's been working on. I've got my Chrysler over at his house, and he was like, his girlfriend said that like the amount of an automotive enthusiasm is high, but the knowledge is low.
Yeah.
At the house, because like same thing as like James, super into cars, but we neither of us have like that super deep knowledge, and that's why it's tempting. We have our other host, Zach Job, who does the Money Pit Miata show. He is like an actual mechanic, so we have to like control ourselves as like to not ask him for help all the time, because that's all he does. Like they shoot that show at his house. His life is basically Money Pit, so we have to give him breaks. Yeah, we have to, because like otherwise he's just going to be overwhelmed. So we have to kind of figure out a lot of stuff on our own and give Job the space he needs, even though it's very tempting to act like we have a free mechanic, but we don't, because he's our friend.
Yeah, he's kind of signed his life away to that project, I suppose, isn't it?
Oh man, yeah, he loves it though. He's like one of those guys that he's always on the hunt for a new project car. He's like just rotating through them. He really loves it, but he's got to do it on his terms, and we can't just like control his life,
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
Exactly, unfortunately. And that's the thing, as much as there are a lot of kind of similarities, again, same age, big gaming background, in terms of actual car culture, I mean, where I grew up and where I'm from, compared to where you're from, and the car cultures are so different. That's the thing, like, round my way, it's all like modded Fiestas, and you know what I mean, like all like big wheels lowered, like, guys, honestly, it's like literally the road right outside, that it's kind of outside the window here. You'll probably hear one go past at some point during this podcast, because you always get the twats who drive that. Like, there's a park right here, and they all congregate. I sound like a right old man moaning, but you always hear them going down. You hear the popping where they're just like dumping the. It does my nutting, to be honest. That's real. I appreciate a car like that to drive, but when you've got it going around bloody window all day.
Oh yeah. I relate. I live on a very busy street, and people love to straight pipe their Chargers and their Mustangs. And there's the loudest car that I've seen go by though is a Civic, which I assume has no exhaust system on it at all. It was extremely loud. It's very annoying. But yeah, like when I grew up in a pretty rural small town in California called Atascadero. And around there is like the car culture was mostly like big trucks and muscle cars, and that was kind of it. So I'm not super into trucks now. I mean, I have a growing appreciation for them, but like it was mostly just muscle cars were like the only thing I cared about until I got to Donut. Really? I was just all in on them.
Yeah, because I feel like when I kind of watch, you talk about cars, you seem to do have this quite kind of all-encompassing, respect for not just American muscle, but a variety. But that wasn't a thing beforehand.
Not really. No. Like I said, it was mostly just muscle cars that I was interested in, and then in college, that's when I started meeting. I started gaining friends that had other kind of mostly Miatas and stuff, but like I got to drive like mostly Miatas again, and that's when I was like, oh, this is a great car.
Cars, isn't there?
Yeah. Oh,
amazing cars.
Maybe there's something to going out with a slow, light car and just having fun with it. That's interesting.
Actually, no, I'm just going to send you a picture on Twitter, actually, of something I saw literally today. So literally, I saw this in a car park about 2-3 hours ago. the last thing you would expect to see in a
Whoa.
North London car park, GT40, and like an original GT40 by the looks of it.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a kit car or not. Might be a
Maybe,
replica.
maybe.
That's
I'd be
pretty
surprised
sweet.
if that. Look at it, it's fucking amazing. Like, there's the
Yeah.
last thing you'd expect to see in like a quaint. Like this was kind of, it's right in the middle of bloody nowhere in like North London.
That's awesome.
Crazy, man. You know, I'm into various things, but I feel like very much with motoring, whether it's motorsport or just cars in general, it really does bring people together in such in such a way. And obviously, Donut's been an amazing like manifestation of that in the kind of digital world.
We try to be, as inclusive as we can, and that, I mean, starts with like not talking down on to any car, because there might be some kid out there watching a video with that car, and you don't want to make them feel bad about themselves, so that, I mean, that took a little while to cultivate that feeling and that sort of mission, but I'm really glad we did, because through shows like Bumper to Bumper, and just going on different trips and stuff and meeting so many different people with different kinds of cars, like, that passion is the same across the board. Like, when you talk to someone,
Absolutely.
No matter what they built, it's that same feeling. So that's really important to us.
Exactly, it's their baby. But
Yeah.
and obviously for you, kind of, did you always have the ambition to work in automotive? Was that always the plan for you since you were young?
I think so. It's like growing up watching Top Gear was like, I want a job like that,
Yeah.
And for a little while, I think I kind of not lost sight. That puts too much weight on it. But just like, I don't know. It's just like, well, that's a cool dream job. But I was when I was in college, I was like focusing on sound, like record like on set sound for like film and TV. But then I got the internship at Donut and was like, oh, because maybe there's something here. Because all through college, I was like watching YouTube videos of dudes like David Peterson, that dude in blue. What else? Like Roadkill, when that was still on YouTube. Pretty much every Motor Trend show. I was thinking like, man, like all these people are like making car content for the internet. Like, I really want to do this as well, because if they can do it, then I can probably do it too. So yeah, I got really lucky with the internship and was able to turn that into a freelance job at first, and then finally got full time a little later on. But yeah, just feeling very lucky, but it's also like, all right, made it happen,
Yeah, mate. No, good for you, man. That's the thing, because I was going to ask, because obviously before this, I had a little peep on your LinkedIn. Got to do my research, and obviously I saw like your broadcasting kind of production background. Like, again, when you decided to go down that trail, was it always in the back of your mind that this is going to be to do with automotive, or was that just another passion of yours? Like, how exactly did you come to decide to go down that path?
I think that goal was like lingering in the back of my mind, because I never made it happen. But when I was in community college, I had an idea for like my own kind of YouTube channel of what I like wanted, the kinds of videos I wanted to make. And I even bought like 3 GoPros and like some sound record, like a little recorder and stuff like that. I just never made it happen though. I just never put the plan into action. But I wanted to make like car content with that stuff. And I think just school, and I just never made time for it. And then through college,
didn't they? So.
Yeah. And then through college, when I transferred into a university, that really took a lot of focus away from it as well. But watching YouTube every day, I think it was always like a reminder. Basically, I subscribed to like so many different car channels that it was just always like in my face, hey, go do this. But I don't know, man. It's like it's just surreal, like how the channel has grown. Being able to like expand the lineup of shows and put more videos out during a 1 week period definitely helps the growth.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So I don't know. It's just surreal. It's very cool.
I mean, so when you say you started as an intern, do you remember? Like, I'd really be interested to see exactly what the kind of what the process was. So were you just kind of, were you just randomly on their website and you saw an internship, and then like how exactly did that opportunity go from like you not to all of a sudden being at Donut?
Yeah, so I don't think they had any posts or anything like that on their website, but so to graduate from the production school at CSU Northridge, like I had to have an internship, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna email all the car channel or anything like car related, maybe not anything because I only emailed 3 things, but like I emailed like a few different channels that I knew were in Southern California. Donut was the only one that got back to me. I think because they were probably the smallest at the time. They were, I think they were around like 40,000 or 50,000 subscribers.
Oh wow! Yeah.
The channel was a lot different back then. It was more of like a production company that made stunt videos that were basically like ads for Snap-on or NOS Energy, and they would use like usually Formula Drift drivers or NASCAR drivers to do these stunt videos, and it was a decent business, but like nobody really subscribes to Snap-on or NOS Energy's channel, so the return on investment of all the energy that goes into these videos was kind of low. Anyway, that's going into the weeds, but so yeah, I emailed the CEO, or it was just like an info at Donut or whatever. I was like, hey, I'd like to be an intern, and they were really busy at the time, and they're like, our CEO Matt was like, hey, just we're very busy at the moment. Just email me in a month, and I'll try to get back to you. So in my phone, I like set a reminder for a month later, like to the minute.
Nice.
I was like, all right, here we go. So like at this time, got to send another email, and it just kept going from there. So emailed again, just kept pestering him, got the interview, and I drove from the San Fernando Valley where I was living down to Santa Monica, or West LA rather. You're over in England, so you don't know that.
I ain't got a Scooby, mate. I'll look it up on maps after.
So anyway, yeah, I went down there, got an interview. James was one of the people that interviewed me, and yeah, got to start the next week. I was pretty intimidated because it was a very hip, cool office, and I showed up in like a flannel and jeans, and like my hair was just insane. Oh, my hair was very bad back then. I forgot about that. I looked like Wolverine from X-Men.
Oh, really?
Like redneck really Wolverine. It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But anyway, at that time, since we weren't really making weekly videos, it was more like my internship was a little strange because we weren't as busy. I mostly did like my first day interning, I was like organizing production binders and stuff like that. Like definite grunt work at the time.
Yeah.
But then I started learning how to use like Premiere and just the basics of editing. So after I graduated, they had me on. I would edit like these daily little auto news bite videos for the Facebook page, which is pretty interesting. They're like a minute long with just text and like press footage basically. And then after a while, I think it was after Up to Speed started, and we started doing more like hosted content, which was pretty successful. Like the first Up to Speeds were like pretty successful. That's when I was like, hey, can I host a show? And James and Jesse were like, okay, yeah, sure, let's put the kid to the test. And I did like a daily hosted auto news show for like 2 weeks, which I had to write, host, and then edit all in one day. I did that for like 2 weeks before being like completely burned out, because it was like it was pretty crazy.
It's a tall order, man.
Yeah, to do it by myself. But after that, I think they were like, okay, he definitely wants to do it. So that's when we developed the idea for like Wheelhouse, and here we are.
Amazing. Here you are. And again, like, to be in front of the camera, Was that something you'd always envisaged, or was that just something that you kind of warmed to over time and thought, fuck it, I'm going to go for it?
Yeah, I think just as a kid, I've been starved for attention or something. I don't know, but I've always I've always liked the idea of hosting something.
Yeah.
Do you remember that show Popular Mechanics for Kids? Did you ever watch that? It was
Doesn't
like a
ring a
Canadian
bell.
TV show.
That might be why. It probably wasn't. I don't know if it was in the UK. Maybe. I don't know. It doesn't ring a bell.
It's like,
But
yeah. So I remember like renting those videos from the library as a kid and thinking like they were like the hosts were. I mean, I know it was Jay Baruchel, who's like a Canadian actor, and he's been in like a lot of comedies and stuff now. But like at the time, I didn't know that. And then Alicia Cuthbert, who's also like an actress. What movie was she in? I can't remember. Anyway, it was those two. Like they were like hosts, they were kids, and I was like, man, that's so cool. Look at these kids get to do all this cool stuff. So, that I've definitely wanted to host something since I was a kid. And in high school, I would do the like announcing for freshman football games. I did that for like a season. So I was like, oh, this is like really fun too. So I think I've always kind of had that kind of inclination. Yeah.
You're never shied away from the cameras or the spotlight.
Oh,
and
no,
actually,
no.
I was going to mention this as well. Like I saw on your Instagram that you like to do a bit of comedy as well. You're a funny guy, Nolan.
Oh, yeah. So last year, unfortunately, like this whole quarantine thing kind of like shot that down a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, last year I took a class on stand-up comedy, and I've done, what is it, 3 shows now. So just, barely getting my feet wet in it. But that's something I've always loved too, was like as a kid, I really loved, I was like a geek about comedy. I would always be watching like Comedy Central Presents. I was really into Dane Cook also when I was a teen, which people kind of look down on now, but I still think he's very funny. Yeah, maybe when quarantine is over and it's safe to go out to clubs again, I'll get back into it. Because it's a lot of fun being on stage like that. My last show I totally bombed, so that kind of like that kind of put a damper on my mood about it. But I want to get back out there. Yeah,
you got to make those mistakes to learn from them, ain't you? So,
absolutely, yeah.
Exactly.
That's like,
you can't fear of failure. You can't let that get in the way.
Yeah.
So, good for you though, man. Because that's the thing. It's important to have kind of, I imagine that a lot of people watching are like, Nolan's whole life is cars, and obviously a big part of your life is cars, but it's good to have like passions outside where you can kind of escape the same, because of course you work in an industry that you love as well. So when you combine a passion and your career, then that passion isn't the thing that you escape to anymore, because you're doing it all the time,
right? Yeah, exactly.
So it's a difficult balance, but yeah. So in terms of your actual role at Donut now, like typically, obviously we see you in front of camera, but obviously you say you know how to write, you know how to edit. Kind of how does it work on a kind of day-to-day basis? And particularly one thing I want to ask is for like the bumper to bumper series, for example, because I really enjoy the edit style on those, and obviously the amount of research that must go into them. Just to give people an idea of how long those videos take to produce from start to finish, kind of what time frame are we talking?
I think it usually takes about 2 weeks per video. So like it starts with like we have a group of writers, and we pitch ideas to each other, like what's the angle we want to take on a certain subject. So let's take like this week's Wheelhouse, which came out yesterday as of this recording, which was about the muscle truck war of the early 90s. So like when we first started, like we'd be like, oh man, like let's make a video about muscle trucks. All right, go and write something. And it was just like, it'd be so hard to make a title for it, because like you'd write yourself into a corner being like, okay, here's what the video is about, but there's not really a driving force behind it. So like now we're a lot more focused on like, okay, here's the angle, like here's an outline now, like here's what the episode is going to be. So any prospective creators out there listening, definitely don't have a subject, have like a concept. Took us a while to learn that, but that you got to have that.
Absolutely.
It sounds obvious, but sometimes you get a little lost. Anyway, so we pitch a concept, assign a writer. It could be me. The sport truck one was written by my friend Joe, who's also a co-host on our podcast, Pass Gas. So Joe came back with an outline, and then he and I, like after he was done with the first draft, he and I would like read through it, usually with either Jesse, who was our creative director. James might be in on the read, and we'll just kind of give input on like, okay, maybe this didn't work, this did, and try to sculpt it, make it like as to the point as we can while still maintaining a good video length, because YouTube really favors videos over 10 minutes. We think it might even be longer than that now, because YouTube wants to take the place of TV. So the more time they have you on the platform, the better. Anyway, so being focused on a point, having length. So when the script is done, we do shoot weeks. So like we'll shoot all the videos usually in one day. So like 4 videos in a day. Over quarantine, I had to set up a green screen and camera and lights in my apartment, which you can see behind me. Not a lot of space to do that. So that was really challenging, but we recently figured out a way to do it in a studio with like just me and a director. So we shoot those 4 out in a day, and then those get delivered either on into a Google Drive or something. The footage gets to an editor, and then they spend like another week or so, preferably longer, about a week editing and putting the video together. So from start to finish, from writing it, pitched and outlined and written, to being fully edited, takes about 2 weeks. It could be longer. We'd prefer it to be longer, but yeah, about 2 weeks is usually the amount of time it takes.
Crazy. So much time. That's the thing. That's like, I think it's easy to, like, again, as someone who knows how to edit, I can just see how many hours must have been poured into those edits. But I mean, do you do much editing now yourself at all?
I do not. I've completely forgotten how to do most things. It gets, well, like I could make like a very basic video with like no graphics and all that, but that's really where like our kind of flavor comes in. It's like the style, our graphical style that is across all these different shows. I have no idea how to use After Effects anymore. I really just write, and I write, host, and brainstorm is basically the 3 things I do at Donut. Yeah,
it's amazing, and obviously like the position, and obviously you talk about when you were a kid and you watch these shows, like you watch like Top Gear, and think that's a dream job. How close do you think you are to actually just living that? Because it seems like it's ticking a lot of the boxes in terms of like your dream kind of career.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I really wish I had a garage. That's kind of it. That's all I want. That's what I want is a garage. That'd be pretty much it. No, but it's really close, man. I get that kind of those Top Gear feelings when we were shooting high-low. That's definitely the most Top Gear I've ever felt, is when we were driving our Z's through the night to New Mexico and having them break down on the side of the road in Arizona and being like, oh man. Like can you imagine the how many behind the scenes stories those guys have? Like not just like Jeremy and James and Hammond, but like the production crews that were on these trips. It must have been insane. I can't even imagine.
Well, I always like to think of the episode when they're in Alabama.
Oh
with
yeah,
the pickup trucks. I mean, Jesus, that was a wild one, man. And like you say, there must have been so much that went on beyond. Do you have a particular Top Gear episode that? Because we all love Top Gear. Everyone watching is going to be a Top Gear fan. I can guarantee it. Do you have a particular kind of episode or particular one that sticks in the mind at all?
Yeah, the one I always show people if they haven't seen the show is the Vietnam motorcycle trip. I
Hmm.
think it's just so good. It's everything I love about the show in
Yeah.
one long episode, and I'd love to go over there and recreate it and just like as a vacation, just ride across Vietnam. It was just so cool. Um,
It's so well shot, and it's so like the storytelling of it is just amazing.
it's so good.
It's so good.
What are some other good ones? The North. Did they go to the North Pole? Yeah, North Pole one with
Hmm.
the Hilux was really awesome
Yep.
as well. Just the road trip ones I think are the best episodes. Um,
Yeah.
oh, also the budget rallycross episode. Remember that one where they were like, "Can you buy a car for the same price as a golf bag or something like that?"
Yes. Yeah. No, I
That
remember.
was
Yeah,
a
because
really
Jeremy
great
hates
episode.
golf.
Yeah, that was a really great episode as well.
There are some good ones. And I suppose with Donut, like you say about all the different kind of shows that you guys have now throughout the week, I mean, I guess there's room to kind of build, and having such a big platform as well, you can kind of go wherever you want with it. I mean, what do you see for the future of Donut? Are there any particular things in mind, or is it very much kind of keep going on as you are at the moment and just see where that takes you?
I read so many comments, and it sucks as a creator. I'm sure you've gone through the same thing. Also, I don't really like the word creator, but it's the easiest one to use. But like, it's so easy to ignore the good comments and focus on the negative ones.
Of course.
But something that really is important to me is like trying to be as factual and entertaining as possible. But like now that we're at this size, I'd really like to use that our heft to like get more interviews with like people in industry. Um, there's only so much research, like there's only so much information online. Like we do like a lot of our research just through the internet, but like there gets to a point when you start seeing the same information over and over again,
Yeah.
and you can't help but think that like maybe it's not super accurate and it's just been parroted, So I'd really
Mm.
like to start being more in touch with industry figures and getting the information straight from them.
Hmm.
So like we become like a more like one, so the information is accurate, but two, so it becomes more of like we're the only place you could get that information kind of deal.
Hmm.
you know
Yeah, and it kind of helps legitimize the channel, I suppose,
yeah
doesn't it?
yeah because I don't know, I don't want to get too down on myself or anything like that, but it hurts to read those negative comments, and sometimes they're right. Like
Mm.
sometimes we've made a lot of factual mistakes, and
Yeah.
I'll admit that, either through sloppy research or taking a source that might not have been, or like that game of telephone through the internet where things get repeated so much that nobody questions whether it's true or not. That works its way into our videos as well.
Mm.
Yeah, because I think like as big as we are, we have a responsibility to be accurate, and
Yeah.
we all like we have to remind ourselves that like a lot, and just like strive to hit that mark, because like otherwise there's going to be more Tomo F1s out there making response videos, hopefully in the way you did, because like you were very reasoned and
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agreed with most of your points. That was the
Yeah.
thing. It was just the title that got people rattled. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the whole comments, because obviously that is something that's so unique to YouTube. The whole traditional television has not had that instant feedback system that YouTube has in the form of comments. I mean, how do you on a personal level kind of how does that affect you? Because I know it's like, a lot of people really struggle with reading it, and it's just like, do you stick away from it? Like, as a human being, like how does that affect you?
Well, at first, like during the first couple episodes of Wheelhouse, like I would get like a stomach ache every Sunday night before the video came out, because I was like, oh my god, what if people don't like me? What if people don't like the video? What if it's a huge flop? now that doesn't really happen anymore. But reading, particularly, not just like if people correcting factual errors, that's I like that. Like, that's good. And I always try to, like, I either give the comment a heart or I upvote it, with the donut account, so it goes more towards the top, so people see that. Because it, inaccuracy needs to be addressed. But if it's just nasty for no reason, I just kind of have to remind myself that, some people just want to be heard. Some people, it might have been a bad day for them. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. You just kind of have to. You can't let it. I don't know how to teach that. You just have to, like, you got to get used to it and just remind yourself that, that's just one person, and there's all these other positive comments. For every one nasty comment, there's probably going to be like 100 good ones.
Yeah.
So that's how you got to approach it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. It definitely used to affect me more, but now I think I've kind of grown a thicker skin to it.
But that's the thing, because it's not a normal human thing. It's not something humans have dealt with.
No.
For 99.999% of humankind existence, you've never had this kind of portal of opinions being thrown at you where that people wouldn't say that shit in real life. You know what I mean? And it's like, it does take time. I still remember my first really bad before I did F1 content at all, when I was doing football videos, and I still remember that first really nasty comment, and that how it made me feel at the time. And you're right, you do need that time to kind of push through it. But obviously with what you guys are doing, I mean, you've gone from when you started as an intern, a channel with 50k subscribers, to now almost 4 million. How is that kind of, in terms of both the feedback from people and in terms of how much do you actually listen to and act on versus trusting your own judgment, but also just internally as a business, how has that changed things?
I liked it. I'd like to think that we are still the same company, just a little smarter now, with a little bit more idea of what we're doing. That's a hard question, because
that's what I do, mate.
Man, I think we figuring out the YouTube game is like, it takes so long unless you hire consultants or something like that. But like, we had to figure out so many things on our own, until we did hire our we had a production manager named Josh Mattingly. He came over from Smosh. He had worked for Smosh previously, and he was like a huge help. He's like, you guys aren't doing this? Like, what? You guys are tagging your videos like this? How have you guys even survived? There's like so many small things that make that add up to a big difference. It was mostly just titling and like getting your thumbnails.
Yeah, like just the SEO side of things.
Yeah, that's like a huge part of it. But so we've gotten smarter in that way, and we've definitely made a concerted effort to kind of constrain ourselves in terms of I guess like budget, maybe. Like a show, like most of our shows, except for Bumper to Bumper in its first incarnation, where we're actually on set with the real car walking around, like that took a long time to shoot. It was it was a super heavy edit, because the editor for that show, Max, was like really into doing a lot of crazy stuff. But now with Jeremiah hosting a show in his garage, it's a lot simpler. But the rest of our shows were mostly just green screen shows. It's like, hey, if you want to make a show, you got to be able to shoot on a green screen, and it's got to be able to be edited in like a week or so. And I think having those kind of constraints definitely helps your creativity. So I think
absolutely,
I mean, that's what's so great about YouTube, is that like you and like so many other people are like just shooting in their apartment or their house, but they still make a format that is interesting to watch. That's what's so cool about the show, or the platform rather, because like if James came to me and was like, all right, you can make whatever show you want with no constraints, no barriers, I wouldn't know what to do, because it's like that sort of freedom doesn't allow
too much
creativity
choice.
almost. Yeah. There's like there's nothing where you can. There's no obstacles to focus on how to get around. You know, it's like being in like a huge dry lake bed. Like you won't know how.
And I feel like as well that would potentially take away from the content a bit. I think if you guys were shooting everything in these super high production facilities with all these perfect lighting and everything, like I don't know, there's something about the indie style of filmmaking, and that can come across in so many different forms. And I think you guys have, you found like a good balance between producing some like really, again, the edits are a lot like that. You talk about the early bumper to bumper stuff. I mean, those edits were mad. I'm just like, yes, it's so unique, and it's combining that with also the more like, I know it just has a different appeal in terms of like, I know it's a cliche, but equipment doesn't really matter. It's the story and it's the actual the content of what you're creating. It has a much more fundamental.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's like it or not.
That's what people, when like people ask me like how to get into YouTube or whatever, I just tell them like don't let yourself get focused on equipment or anything like that. Shoot with whatever you have, edit with what you have, because like the equipment will come later if you're truly invested in it. Like just learn how to make a good video, make what you want to watch. And the rest will follow,
Yep. Well, literally, my next question was going to be, what would you recommend to any upcoming creators? And you pretty much nailed it there, mate. So
yeah, just
fair
open
play.
a credit card, get the most expensive camera you can put on there, and then sit in your room for 8 months and worry about the video. Yeah, no, just
1 million subscribers confirmed.
Yeah. No, just make what you want to watch, and like trying to find your voice is very difficult, and it might be okay at the beginning to kind of like ape someone else, like kind of just emulate someone else, maybe just to find your footing in that way. But then definitely find your voice after a couple videos. Find out what you want to do.
Yeah, you need to like get past that. I think discipline is a big part of it as well, and like sticking to something when you're not getting the big views and the big subscriber numbers, and still pushing through that in itself, I think, is one of the biggest challenges, and you just got to have like a more long-term sight on things.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, Nolan, we've talked a lot about a lot of different things, but we haven't even talked about F1 yet, mate. What's going on?
No, we haven't.
Tomo F nothing. So of course, that, again, from an outside viewing in, it does seem like you're kind of flying the flag at Donut for F1, because all of the F1 content we've seen will, by and large, has involved you in some way, and you talk about F1 with a lot of kind of gumption. What's your earliest memory of Formula One, first of all, and how long have you been into the sport?
I came into the game super late because
fake fan.
Yeah. No, my first race that I watched was Australia in 2014. So the very first race with the V6 era cars. Because at the time, I don't even remember where F1 was broadcast in the U.S. I think it was kind of a harder sport to find at the time. I might be totally wrong. Maybe I just never looked for it. But like growing up, I was always aware of Formula One. Like when I was a kid, Schumacher was like the guy. He's like the only driver I knew growing up, just because he was so big that like his name transcended the sport basically. So I was like, you know what, Formula One seems pretty cool. I'm gonna get into this, but it took a lot of homework at that time. I think like to just jump into the sport, I think would be really difficult. So I spent a lot of time on like the Formula One subreddit and just kind of like read up on like all the different teams and who the drivers were. Luckily now it's a lot easier because Netflix has Drive to Survive. That's like so awesome. I love that show. Even if like it's not it takes some liberties. But that's like such a great way for like Americans really to get into it without having to do a bunch of research, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, did a bunch of homework and then finally watched the Australian Grand Prix, and I think Daniel Ricciardo won that race, but then was disqualified for some sort of fuel flow rule that Red Bull broke. I think.
Let's have a look. So 2014 Australian Grand Prix, because
Yeah.
obviously that was Seb's last season in the Red Bull.
That's right.
He'd just become 4-time world champion, hadn't he? So the winner was who was it? Nico Rosberg.
Rosberg.
K-Mag was second.
That's right. I think he
Magnussen.
was driving for McLaren, I think, at the time.
He was.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. Jensen came third in the McLaren, and Nico won in the Mercedes. So there you go.
But I think there was something with Daniel at that race. I think I remember that.
Did he finish? Right. Yeah, he was second place. Daniel.
Second place. Okay.
Second place got disqualified. We'll just cut all me looking into Wikipedia. Let's look at that.
Okay, so he got second. He didn't win.
Yeah.
But still, that was like, oh, interesting. Because I remember liking Daniel Ricciardo. I'd never heard of him before, or I'd never seen him race. But I was like, oh, this guy's like, he's cool. And then I was like, man, he got disqualified. I think that's when I was like, I'm like a Red Bull fan now. That's who I mostly pull for. It's so weird being a fan because you could have like one team that you root for, but you still by proxy root for other drivers to also do as best as they can. Like McLaren for sure. Like, Lando is like the dude right now that everyone's pulling for just because he's so likable, and you want to see him do well, but at the same time you're like, but I want my guys to do well as well. It's very strange. Do you play the F1 fantasy game at all?
I do, very unsuccessfully.
Yeah, same here. We have a pool going at Donut, and I'm doing very poorly. But then that adds a whole other thing because it's like
it does.
I'm like, there's like a three-way dynamic for watching Hamilton. Like the guy's the best, and you want like. At first, I was like one of those fans who's like, oh man, I'm so bored of Hamilton winning all the time, especially like 2 or 3 years ago before the aero changes and like before the halo came in. Like 2015 and 16 were like kind of boring in that way. Anyway, but like now I have like such a greater appreciation for him, and he's like one of my fantasy drivers. But I also want to see more unpredictable finishes. So it's very a complicated dynamic. Seeing Massively. Hamilton win.
Massively.
I think I definitely gained a much better appreciation for him after, on Past Gas, our podcast, we did a series on Ayrton Senna. And, obviously one of the greatest of all time, but like, that's when I was like, oh man, like with Hamilton, like we're seeing like a dude in his prime doing something that'll be talked about for the next like 30 years, so like why root for his downfall?
Exactly. I think like, again, the Senna at the time obviously was held in very high esteem, but again, when someone's career is over and you don't have them anymore around, then I think you look back more fondly, right? I mean, for me, like, the whole Prost Senna era, for me, actually, like, if you look, like, in terms of numbers, now, of course, like, a lot of that is because Senna did pass away too soon and could have won more world titles, but Prost was unreal. He was such an amazing driver. And I think the fact that he is still I think when Prost passes, I know it's morbid, but you know what I mean? When someone passes on and they're then, I don't know, I feel that, and it's the same thing with Hamilton. When he retires, he'll be held in higher esteem. And then when he eventually, meets his maker, then he'll be held in even higher esteem. And we kind of, you don't know what you've got until you've lost it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of those kind of scenarios.
And it's just super impressive on Mercedes' part that they're able to design a car like that it just dominates so easily. Even if it does make the results a little predictable, I don't know. We'll see. I think when the rules, hopefully when the rules change and that budget cap comes in, things will be a little different.
I hope so.
But we'll have to see then.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like on paper, it should be very, very good for the sport, because that is the one thing. Like, it annoys me. You know, we talk about circuits and people say, "Oh, well, this circuit's no good because you can't overtake." And it's like, it's literally a racing track that's built for racing. If you can't overtake, it's not the track's fault. It's the fact that they've got cars now which are incredibly fast, but again, the dirty air and the DRS, and it just means that they just can't. And it's just like it's a product of the bad regulations. But anyway, before I rant too much, obviously, you know, again, within Donut, are there any other big F1 fans, or do you feel that that's kind of have you tried to kind of get them into it, and what's their for anyone who isn't an F1 fan, what are their main kind of not issues as much, but why aren't they interested maybe?
Okay. So we have a pretty good, like I said, we have the F1 fantasy pool going on. Most of the big F1 fans sorry, car going by. Most of the big F1 fans in the company are mostly behind the scenes. Like one of our editors, Felipe, he's a big Daniel fan. Is always wearing the Renault jersey in the office, you know, when we had an office. And then Jesse, our creative director, he's big into F1. And then our head editor, Zach Redpath, he's also super into F1. So we have like 4 or 5 people that are like who know what's going on, and are invested in it. Oh, and Joe, my co-host. He's like one of the Drive to Survive kind of fans. That's his kind of in. But he's super into it now. Like he's like sending me like stories, through Slack and stuff about F1, and it's like, all right, cool. He's into the sport. He knows the players. Drive to Survive was a great stepping stone in there. You know, that's proof right there.
Absolutely. And I think like kind of what does the sport need to do more to, because obviously we know that the US is a big kind of growth, like a lot of untapped potential in the USA, and obviously what do you think the sport needs to address and change and do more of to appeal to that American fan base?
That is a very good question. I think they're doing it really. I think like once Liberty Media took over, and they started doing more like that. Now on YouTube they have like, you know, race highlights, behind the scenes kind of stuff going on. I think embracing YouTube and not putting things behind a paywall was a really smart move. Because the more free content you can give people, I mean, it's just like the price doesn't even matter. It's like, okay, you've given me an easier access point into the sport. What I think, what should they do? I think like I said, or in our we did a video on sim racing during quarantine, and one of my takeaways I think was that this has really let us kind of see the personalities under the helmet. Like, I did not know that Charles Leclerc was actually pretty funny, you know, and of course Lando was like the breakout star of streaming, but like you gotta let the guys with the big personalities, you gotta let them run. Like they knew that with Daniel. You know, Daniel's like, I've actually met him twice, and I don't know Daniel, but like one of the times he was telling all these dirty jokes and stuff like that, and I was like, this guy's this guy's Australian. Yeah,
he's one of the boys.
Yeah, he is one of the boys. He's so funny, and I think with the quarantine situation going on and streaming and all that, I think Liberty is probably seeing that and being like, okay, we got to let these guys like be themselves more. I think that'll be a big help. They should have another race in the U.S. too. I know they don't necessarily like doing that, but America's a huge country, like in terms of size, and just to have one race in Texas, it's like, I mean, I could fly out there, I guess, but like even having one on the East Coast would be really great. Maybe even in the South, perhaps, where there's a lot of NASCAR fans. That'd be cool. Some sort. I don't know if there's any grade 1 circuits in that region, but that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it would be. And that's the thing. I think, like, you know, there's a lot to be said for, you know, doing things a bit differently, and like, you know, when Bernie was in charge before Liberty took over, the drivers weren't even allowed to bloody post on their, you know, Twitters. You know what I mean? Like it was he like controlled everything, and they've definitely opened up the thing, because I guess obviously, you know, with a lot of US sports, you look at kind of basketball and American football and all that kind of stuff, and particularly with like NASCAR and IndyCar, there is definitely there feels like it's quite kind of similar in Australia with like Aussie rules. Like there's certain sports that you guys kind of, you know, you like your sports that they're not global sports, they're just big within the US,
right? Yeah.
And obviously having F1 come over, and obviously again it's difficult, isn't it? Because I don't know if, do you think that the classic NASCAR fan would take to Formula One? Because NASCAR is very like working class. It feels, it's very like no fucking about. They're just getting on with it. They're all in pretty much the same car racing. F1's much more like there's all the technical side of things, and it's like if the cars touch slightly, then they both fucking explode. You know what I mean? Like it's very different in terms of, even though
that
they're both
might be something like, because I mean anything the FIA does is like very upper crust. Maybe maybe that is an issue. I'm not sure, but like, I mean, IndyCar is like pretty popular here. Definitely not the same as NASCAR, but you know, we went to the IndyCar Grand Prix, or the Long Beach Grand Prix rather, last year, and it was packed. It was an amazing experience. I think I'm not exactly sure what needs to happen. I think like the Netflix. I keep bringing it up, but the Netflix Drive to Survive was a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because like so much of the sport that I love about Formula One is not the racing. It's like the storylines behind the scenes, where that the on-track action has implications in. That's what it's not a soap opera, but it like might as well be. It's like, once you know the players that well, and you know the dealings behind the scenes, you know the implications, that's what gives the racing so much more meaning, you know. And you know that. But 100%. I think that's the key, is like really highlighting the I don't want to say the drama, because like that implies that it's meaningless, but like the tension, I think, is what really is the key, in my opinion.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, you can boil that down really to pretty much like any sport. So whatever it is, like you might support your local team, you might support certain people because you've seen, like, there's, regardless of the sport, it's not just about two brain. Like if it was just like Android teams with no branding, they're not from anywhere, just playing against each other, and just if it was just down to the highest quality sport, it's not going to have the same appeal as it is if it's like a relatable basketball player, or it's your American football like hometown team, or it's a Formula One driver that you seem to like on Twitch. You know what I mean? There's so much more to enjoy in all sports than just the result and what happens in the end.
Yeah.
And I think bringing more attention to that in all sport is going to do all sport good.
The idea has been floated that like, maybe there should be an American driver or something like that. I see where they're coming from. I don't know if that would help that much. I think it really is just like, just highlight, tell a story, tell a good story,
Yeah. Well, because we've got two Canadians, and the sport, I feel it's maybe slightly bigger in Canada than in the US, but I don't know, it still hasn't really taken off, I feel.
Yeah.
Do you kind of follow did you have a bit of an affinity for the Canadians, just that they're on the kind of same part of the world as you?
Not really. And I think that's because, like, I don't really know what Lance Stroll's personality is like, and I don't really know. Latifi's the other one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I watched your video on Latifi as well. I don't know. They just don't seem. I mean, they're probably nice guys. They're probably good dudes, but like,
absolutely.
I didn't see them on Twitch. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. There's a lot of actually Latifi was
Oh, was
streaming
he?
a bit. But
Whoops. Yeah.
no, I do agree. Again, it's not just about. Otherwise, we'd all just support whoever's the best. You know, what I mean, we all support different sports teams. I mean, so what about you? Like outside of Formula One entirely, what other sports teams are you just? Are they all Californian-based teams, whether it's basketball, American football, whatever?
To be totally frank, the only sport I'm getting more into NASCAR now, but like Formula One is like, that's the pretty much only sport I really watch and am like fully invested in. But yeah, I mean, like when say like in the NBA, when like the finals come around, like I'd root for, the Warriors or the Lakers, which makes me a bandwagon team or bandwagon fan for sure. But
at least you're honest about it.
Yeah, and also like where I grew up was halfway in between San Francisco and Los Angeles, so like I don't really have an allegiance to either team. But I you like to see the California teams do well, but I don't really have like a diehard
fair enough
fandom for either. Yeah.
All your eggs are in the F1 basket, and that's what
really,
like Nolan, because of course, like that's the thing as well. Like the content that you create with Donut around Formula One is obviously is going to be showing the sport off to an audience that, by and large, and like you say, like aren't necessarily not necessarily a lot of F1 fans who watch. So, what you guys are doing is great. So all for it, mate.
I'm definitely taking a break from F1 content. I'm trying to be like, okay, what can I actually contribute that someone else couldn't say better than me, I think the Senna thing was the last F1 deal that it's different with podcasts. Because like a lot more, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but podcasts feel different because it is a more storytelling. It's more storytelling rather than like being extremely, like I know we had a few factual errors here and there as to like dates of like races and stuff like that, but like the overall arc of Senna's life is the same. And eventually I'd like to do like I want to talk about Alain Prost, because we kind of gave him the villain treatment in the Senna series, but like he was a brilliant driver in his own right.
Absolutely.
I want to tell more stories like that, but for the most part, I'm kind of taking a break from F1 content on Wheelhouse because there's channels like yours. A Chain Bear, of course, is another great F1 channel that can. Have you
come across Cranky Yankee by any chance?
I think I haven't watched any of their videos, but I've seen it suggested, so maybe I should take that suggestion.
Cranky's great. So okay. I think he's in, oh God, it's either Philadelphia or Pennsylvania. I can't remember. But his perspective, he's super like detailed into the analytics. And I think like having a strong kind of American perspective, because there's a few good, there's a guy, Zach as well, who's a Canadian guy. And I feel like having that purely, I know it's very kind of on face value, but having that US perspective and talking about it from your point of view where the sport is going to ultimately be, it's like in the UK, if you look at motorsport, it's just F1. That's just at the top everywhere. You look on all the media publications, and for most of the rest of Europe and probably most of the rest of the world, where in the US you've got a very unique perspective and situation on it. So I think there's a lot that you could do for sure around kind of just giving voice to that, and again that unique POV, because there's too many English blokes just waffling about F1 on YouTube.
Yeah, that's
far
true.
Too many of us.
I would like, in the future, I would like to do like a post-race kind of like maybe podcast or something. I don't know. Not even, I just like talking about it. It's so much fun. It's just it's a fun sport, and it's just super cool. And I don't know. I want more people to watch it. So
you got more people to talk to about it. But also,
exactly. That's my motivation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing, because I say that, but to be fair, like none of my mates growing up were really into F1, so it's still got a bit of a niche appeal. But even in the UK. But obviously, what I've got to ask, what did you make of the race on Sunday? Pretty wild, wasn't it, man?
It was at the end. No joke, I was I mean, it was like the race started at like 6 a.m. over here, so that had something to do with it. But I was falling asleep on my couch until I think it was Bottas's tire started went away, and I was like, okay, maybe I should. I'm awake now. What's happening? And then, like, of course, the Hamilton's tire, and like watching Max like chase him down. I was like, oh my! Like, I was like yelling at the TV. Yeah. But overall, I thought it was kind of like the beginning was interesting. The end was, of course, amazing. Now it's like a classic race, but the middle was pretty boring.
Oh, it was.
But I mean, that I think that's just how. The more I watch racing, it seems like that's what it is. You know, if it's especially with F1, if it's not a rain race, then the race is probably gonna be kind of boring in the middle section.
You're right. You're right. It's an inherent part of I think all motorsports that there. A lot of the appeal is just, you know, the fact that the respect and the knowledge of these guys being able to just do it lap after lap after lap and be so consistent as well.
It's insane. Yeah,
it's crazy. But well, there you go, mate. I think we're good in terms of F1. I now just want to go through some quick fire questions for you.
Okay.
So I've I always slightly cater these for each guest. So hopefully these will all ring true. I'm not going to ask you the same questions as I would some guy from just down the road from me. So are you ready, Nolan Sykes, for the quick fire round?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, buddy. Right. What are your favourite flavour potato chips?
Oh,
come on.
Let's see, potato chips. I like the green Pringles. I forget what flavor that is. Oh,
cheese and onion.
I think so. Yes, yeah. I like that. And,
good man. That's a great shout. I love them.
That's the first thing I thought of.
I like it. No, it's good, man. It's good. What was your favourite TV show as a kid growing up?
Growing up. Without Top Gear, I'm going to put Top Gear aside. There was a show on Nickelodeon called Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. Nice. Very relatable as a kid. Loved that show. I'm going to stick with that. That was my favorite show.
Nice, like it. What was your favourite sport, or what is your favourite sport outside of Formula One? If you had to pick one.
Man, crap.
Come on, I'm sussing you out here, man.
I'll say, I think basketball. Basketball's very cool.
Nice. Right. Did you play at all?
I did a little bit. I was awful. Very bad. I did not like running as a kid, and running is a huge part of that sport.
That's fair. No, you're very right. Cardio heavy, that.
Yeah,
sure.
Very.
Right, Nolan, what's your favourite road car of all time? It's a difficult one, this.
That is.
And I mean, you must have seen so many nice cars filming with Donut. Yeah. You've got to pick one. Just one.
Does it have to be one that I've driven, or
no?
Okay,
no,
I'm gonna go with the first gen Dodge Viper. That's like, that was my favorite car as a kid, and still my favorite car today. It's my dream car.
Nice.
I hope it doesn't disappoint if I ever get to drive one.
Well, yeah, don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
What about with Donut? What's been the car that has stuck with you the most, almost, that you've actually seen in the flesh and driven? Okay,
so I'll tell you one that I didn't get to drive, and I'll tell you one that I did get to drive. The first one, we had a Pagani Huayra in our office. Obviously, didn't.
Normal.
Yeah, that was surreal, man. Didn't get to drive that, obviously, but just the engineering and everything about it was. It was like a otherworldly, man. Like, those guys, Pagani in general is such a cool company. And having that car was a really special moment. That was like a Top Gear moment for me, for sure. It was like, I can't. We have this in our office, and I get to sit in it. That was amazing. Oh, so I now I'm thinking of two cars that I've driven. One is the Civic Type R. I don't know if you've got to driven one of those yet.
Not yet. Which mark are you talking?
Oh, the new one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We didn't get any of the older ones over here, but the new one, such a great car. Super fun to drive, and just feels it's just that's like an attainable dream car for me. I think like I'd love to just be able to go around, drive around LA in that thing. Such a cool car, so much fun. But then one of our first press cars that we got, we made it an up to speed on the Dodge Demon. So Dodge let us borrow one. Do they have those over there?
Hang on, they might be under a different name because I know sometimes
it's a Challenger, but built for the drag strip. So it's a big old muscle car.
Okay. No, we don't. To be honest, the only actual easily attainable American muscle car in the UK is the Mustang.
That makes sense. That's right.
I see quite a few of them.
Because they make them. I think they build them over there. They have a factory over there, and they make them right-hand drive for your guys.
Yeah. Wouldn't be surprised.
Excuse me. But the Demon has like 840 horsepower. It comes on drag slicks, or drag radials rather, from the factory, so there's no grip on the street. And they're just like, yeah, have fun, and like
only in America, man.
Yeah,
only in America
definitely a lot of possibly illegal things were done in that car. It was a lot of fun. But it was a lot of fun, but also terrifying at the same time.
I can imagine, man.
Yeah, that sticks out for me. That's a highlight for sure. It's the Demon. Yeah.
Beautiful cars. I really like. I'm not so keen on the back, to be honest, but the front gives me old Camaro vibes. I feel like
it's pretty aggressive. It's cool.
Yeah, very nice.
It's very mean.
Okay, well, back to not car related stuff. So Nolan, you found yourself on death row. Improper facts for your latest F1 video, and Chase Carey's come round and lynched you.
Oh no!
Stuck you in jail. So what is your final meal?
Ooh,
you're on death row. Final meal. What are you eating? What's your main course?
Huh. I can't think of anything else, man. But there's this restaurant in Santa Monica called Tar and Roses, and they make a very good steak. I think I'm gonna go with that. It's very good.
What have you got on the side? What are you talking? Chips?
No, some mashed potatoes for sure. Nice glass of of Pinot.
Ooh. Sophisticated, man.
Yeah, I'll go sophisticated. There's two ways you could answer that question, is with very sophisticated or like Taco Bell, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go sophisticated.
Go out in style.
Yeah.
I like it. Nice. Okay, Nolan, what is your top holiday destination once we're allowed to all travel again? What would be top of your list once the world resumes to normality?
I'd like to go see a race or something. This is not the best holiday destination, but all I can think of is go to I don't even know how to pronounce that course, but the Canadian Grand Prix.
Okay. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
Yeah, what you said. No, but where else? That's weird.
Yeah, because that's Montreal, isn't it?
I think so. I don't really have. I've never been like a big like dream vacation kind of guy. Like my girlfriend's like, where's like the number one place you want to visit? I'm like, I don't know. I
mean, you already live in California, so I suppose
California's pretty good. Yeah.
But pretty good.
I don't know. I like Vietnam. Like, so I've always thought the idea of going to like Vietnam and Southeast Asia was really cool. Malaysia. Yeah, I want to go see. I'm so mad they took Malaysia off the calendar. That's like one of my favorite tracks.
Such a good track.
Yeah, I don't know why they
do you have like a number one track Doesn't not just Formula One, just overall #1 racing track.
I really like Spa, but also in California we've got Laguna Seca,
Yes.
which I did on. I drove on iRacing last night and did horribly, but that's like the track for me. I think I'm pretty confident. I think I could like go there and like drive on the track and be pretty comfortable just with how many virtual laps I've done around it in my life.
Forza 3 for me back in the day. I used to love Laguna Seca.
Oh yeah,
beautiful. So you've never actually driven there in person?
No. The only track I've ever driven, haven't done that much track driving actually. I've done Button Willow, which is out in the middle of nowhere. All the tracks are out in the middle of nowhere. Button Willow, and then we did for high-low. We drove out at Sandia Raceway, which is out in New Mexico and in Albuquerque. Other than that, nothing serious outside of those two tracks. I'd really love to drive Sonoma Raceway, which is in Northern California.
Yeah.
Further north than Laguna Seca. Those two tracks I'd definitely like to give a shot. I don't know if I could handle Spa. Spa seems pretty intimidating.
Yeah, the change in elevation would certainly move some organs around, I feel.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. Nolan, cats or dogs?
Oh, man. When I was a kid, I was very afraid of dogs. I was definitely a cat person as a kid. But now we in high school, we got a dog. And since then, I've been like, all right, I like dogs. No, but like, I'm split between them pretty evenly. I'm pretty good with dogs now. But I don't know. If I had to choose one, it would be a tough decision for sure.
They're very different because I had cats growing up, but obviously now I've got a dog, so it's they're very different. A dog is a baby.
Yeah.
And a cat you can kind of leave to its own device. Actually, pretty much everyone's just said dog straight away. So you're the most on the fence person so far.
All right, I'll take it.
Fair play then. Now, obviously, I put this question because tea or coffee.
Ooh. I think I'm gonna have to say coffee.
Okay.
But I've been trying to get into tea lately. I need to get a kettle, a proper kettle. I've just been like boiling water in like a pot and then like a small pot, but and then just pouring into a cup. But I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't. I feel like a kettle would really add like just that extra 5% to really sell me on tea. But I kind of fluctuate between the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I hate tea.
Really?
The only Englishman who doesn't like tea. No,
that is surprising. That is surprising.
Not all stereotypes fit. And then, last but by no means least, the most important question of all: what is your alcoholic beverage of choice on a night out? Or just pub, whatever. What's your go-to?
I do enjoy a good old fashioned. So, whiskey and bourbon are kind of I like those. But I'm certainly open to anything else. Like at the beginning of quarantine, I didn't really have a lot. I mean, I've been trying to keep an even keel as far as booze goes in my household. But at the beginning, I had vodka in my freezer, and like for some reason I had some Aperol. So like I was making like vodka. Like I was like, all right, entered my ingredients that I had into like Google or whatever, and they're like, you can make this, and it was like a vodka cosmopolitan, and I was like,
that's so relatable. Like, you just cool. Just all the base ingredients you have, just Google how can this all work together.
Yeah. But I definitely prefer the whiskeys for sure. I'm not like a huge whiskey like
connoisseur.
Yeah, like I don't really I haven't drank enough of that to like appreciate the differences.
Yeah.
But like I like old fashions and Manhattans. So that's just how it is,
Red wine and whiskey. There we go.
Yeah.
Nolan Sykes. They're sophisticated. They're much more. I just like cider anything that will get me drunk quick.
Hey, yeah, nothing wrong with that. I'll get into that. Yeah.
Right, Nolan, we're going to round up now, mate. I've just got a few more questions and
All
then
right.
I'll set you free on your way. So again, thank you for taking the time, mate. I do appreciate it. But of course, Nolan, if you were given the reins of Formula One, if Chase Carey gave you his moustache and was like, you're in charge, buddy, what would be the first thing you would change to improve the sport? It can be do with the racing, behind the scenes, the drivers, whatever. What do you think fundamentally Formula One needs to change to improve as a sport?
I think I would more emphasis on ground effects. I think I want to, or like more ground effects, less like external aero, I guess is the proper term. I don't know. I want the cars to be a little harder to drive. You hear about drivers talking about how some of them are too easy to drive, right? Let's make it more difficult. Let's give them something that they have to like really wrestle around the track. I think that'll make it more entertaining.
Less grip, more fun.
Yeah, less grip.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, couldn't agree more, mate. I think you're spot on there. And hopefully 2022, because they've talked about there'll be a bit more of a ground effects focus on that. So
yeah, I think they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah,
hopefully.
I agree. I think it sounds good on paper. And then what about in terms of the future of Formula One, and obviously the future of a lot of motorsports, and obviously as you well know, how VW have killed Formula One. In terms of the movement towards electricity, and Formula E seems to be doing bits and growing in audience. You know, how do you think Formula One will have to change? Will they have to go electric? Do you think they'll merge with Formula E? How do you see that playing out over the next kind of 10, 20, 30 years?
That's kind of scary to think about, because I think Formula E, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's written out that Formula E can be the only electric series in FIA, or not in FIA, but like Formula One can't go electric. Is that how it's?
They've got that. I think that's only for a period of time. I think that's for like 10 years or something.
Okay,
but
that makes sense.
After that. But yeah, for the time being, that is definitely the case.
Okay. Yeah, because like it might happen. It's likely to happen that the Formula E cars, maybe it's not Formula E cars that become faster than Formula One. Maybe it's like Formula One does change over to electric, and just destroys the lap times of all the gasoline powered cars in the past. That's going to be something that they're going to have to really reckon with at some point, because like, as impressive as electric cars are, I love them. I think they're great. I think they're super impressive, but there is something about the noise that adds so much to gasoline powered racing. That's like so much of the appeal. Like when we went to the Long Beach Grand Prix, for example, like it was like it was so loud, and it just, the smells, like you just don't get that in normal life. Like you don't hear things that loud. You don't smell those. The senses are not attacked like that in day to day. And I think that's why people go to racing in the first place, is to experience that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you talk about sound, not just the cars as well, the crowd and and everything that's going on. It's all encompassing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I've been to a Formula E race in New York. I think that was last year. And that was a great experience, but it wasn't quite the same. There's just something about engines that add so much. So I hope that they keep it around as much as they can, even though I know the point of Formula One is to advance what the OEMs can do, and so they can perfect their technology. I just think that's kind of where the divide is there. That's where it is. Like the development of electric technology, but also crowd enjoyment, I think it's a hard line to balance, I think. But I hope they stay as long as they can. Yeah.
I mean, Liberty spent $4.5 billion on Formula One, so you'd like to think they won't just let it die.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think they know what they're doing. I trust them. Yeah.
I agree, mate. And then last but by no means least, Snowden, the last question of this podcast. What is your favourite of the 2020 Formula One liveries?
Ooh. Just on livery alone.
Just livery.
Man, I think it's a tie between. Let's see. I really like AlphaTauri's paint job. I think it's super cool.
Nolan, no.
Oh no!
I'm quite vocal in my dislike of the. It's a bit of a meme, so there we go. You're not the first person to say that.
I just think it's just kind of it's not. I don't know. It's between that and on the other end of the spectrum, I think McLaren. The orange is just so iconic, and I'm so glad that they've really stuck with that being the main color of the car. Because like, have you seen that? There's an Amazon series on McLaren when they still had Alonso. It was Alonso and I think Sainz when he first came onto the team. I think it was like 2016 or 17. When they were like, oh man, there's like an episode of them talking about like, okay, this paint job, it's got to be like iconic. We're bringing back the orange again. People are going to love it. But then they put like those black like swooshes all over it. Remember that?
I haven't seen that. You know what? I haven't seen that. So it's on like Amazon Prime Video.
Yeah. It's actually really good. It's a shame that it wasn't as successful as like as Drive to Survive was, but it's really well done. But anyway, the McLaren when it was orange and black was like that was pretty disappointing. It was like, okay, you kind of went for it, but
they half-assed it, didn't they?
Yeah, a little bit. All in. So with it all in on the orange and just that little bit of blue, I love it. It's just especially since, like we did a series on Bruce McLaren and just talked about the orange and all that, and just I think McLaren with Zach Brown coming on board, I think they've really turned it around, and I'm really hopeful for them. And you know your video on the prospective Gulf partnership and livery, I think there's a lot of cool possibilities for them to do something really awesome next season.
Absolutely, yeah, that's all confirmed now, isn't it? So that will be returning to I mean, again, I think the orange. I don't know if it was 100%, but I feel like that came from Gulf, or that partnership goes so far back that was a kind of an intrinsic reason why they went with the orange, because of the Gulf partnership. But crazy times, man. But of course, there we are. We're done. Thank you very much for taking the time, man. I really do appreciate it. How have you enjoyed the chat?
Yeah, it was very fun. I'm glad that it wasn't. I'm glad that it wasn't a ploy to be like, all right, I've got Nolan on the show. Let's grill him about that VW video. No, I'm kidding. I knew you wouldn't do that, but no. This was a lot of fun. Yeah, and I like talking F1. It's good stuff.
Exactly, man. No, it was great, and of course, obviously, like, come on, everyone knows Donut. But if you don't know Donut, if you don't know Nolan, then obviously all links down in the description. So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Nolan, for taking the time again, all the way from Cali to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
You got the rest of your day to go now. What have you? I guess is it work today? Or
yeah, I gotta start writing a script for another Wheelhouse, so that's coming up. But another day. Here we go.
There you go. There you go. Well, good luck with everything, and thank you again for taking the time, mate. I do really appreciate it. And yeah, that's it. We're done. Boom.
All right,
finished.
Bosh. Thank you.
There we go. That's the outro. Done.